Welcome to the Armed and Ready podcast. I am your host, Jason Wood, the VA loan guy. We have a really exciting episode lined up for you, so come check it out. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. I am your host, Jason Wood. Today, I'm really excited to bring to you a Navy veteran, Robert Morgan, who is here to tell us about his experience in the Navy, as well as cool stuff he's doing these days outside of the Navy in his civilian life with nonprofits, cybersecurity, and all that stuff. So, Robert, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. I appreciate you being with us today. And, like I was mentioning, we were wanted to introduce, your background, right? And why join the Navy? Why get into the military? I think this is for a lot of people. There's, varying reasons why. For myself, I was, captivated by the movie Top Gun and wanted to be a fighter pilot. And that was a big driving thing for me as a kid and, created that passion for me all through growing up. But tell us a little bit about your why. Why'd you join the military? What was pulling you there?
So I'm not from America. Let's start with that. Growing up, most of my family in Jamaica. My dad, he was in the military, basically what you guys would call ROTC. I kind of got introduced to that when I was in high school because I was not your average student. I was that kid who went to high school. I was smaller than average and I was always picked on. And so I decided I'm going to take down the biggest guy when I was in grade 10. When I was in grade 7, I took down the biggest guy in grade 10 and 11. So I walked over to the block, took him down. Everyone stopped flipping me upside down for lunch money, and eventually beat up the wrong person. And I ended up being forced to join the military as a teenager in Jamaica while in high school.
Okay.
So it kind of resonated with me then. And once I got to undergrad, I was a professional runner, ended up coming to America, finishing university up in North Dakota. Couldn't join the military there, so I ended up just working. So I was a software engineer for years, transitioned from North Dakota to Indiana. And the job I worked at, it was a very good job, but it was just, I guess, for lack of a better term, working in the Midwest, in IT, in that state, that town probably. It was just a career killer for me as a software engineer. So there was no way of going up, growing, nothing. It's just kind of you're in this company and that's how it is. Gotcha. So I had a discussion with the boss. He was like, yeah, there's no way of going up. There's no education opportunities, all this stuff. So I was just kind of like frustrated. So I said, I'm going to do something stupid. I'm going to quit my job. So I quit my job, tried joining the Army, and they were like, oh, you have an education. Why would you want to join the Army? We're going to put you behind a desk. I said, no, send me out to the field. Didn't work. Tried the Marine Corps. I have tattoos, and at the time, I guess there was something with a tattoo regulation. They said, oh, you can't join. You have a tattoo. So I was like, oh, well, that's stupid. You have a whole sleeve. I'm looking at a recruiter with a whole sleeve. I couldn't join. So tried the Air Force, nobody responded. And the Navy was just like, hey, we'll take you. Sign a couple of chits, waivers, you're good to go. So that was my why. It was just kind of like I was just fed up with my field, being in my field in the Midwest. And so I said, I'll do something stupid. I'll join the Navy, whatever they want me to do, and go from there.
Yeah. So you got into the Navy, and now did you end up in a job that pertained to your degree and what you were doing in the civilian world, or was it something different?
Way different. It was two different worlds. So I was a software engineer, and it didn't even occur to me to research what engineer, diesel mechanic, so the term was AEN, so engineman. So it didn't even occur to me to do some research on what is an EN, what did it do. So I just saw engineer. And so I was a diesel mechanic. I was from software engineer to diesel mechanic. And I mean, it was going through the A school. It was easy, because, I already have a technical mind. I'm, able to dissect things real fast and ingest it, So it was a really, I won't say easy transition, but the material was easy
To learn.
to digest.
Yeah. That's interesting. Now, in your role, were you working on a ship? Were you on a land base? What was your capacity?
So my first 2 years, I was on a ship. I was on the USS San Diego, and I had an accident, which I never really said anything to anybody about. Um, and from that accident, a lot of um, side effects, things started happening, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And so they ended up transitioning me from the ship to Balboa Hospital. So I ended up working there, which was a very cool experience, which kind of propelled me into where I am now in my civilian career.
Nice, nice. What was your favorite part about serving in the Navy?
I would always tell people being at sea, as much as it sucked, being at sea was the best part. There are times there are people that you will be on a ship that it's just kind of the fact that you would hate people, but you're just kind of out there with people that you love. Like there's the guy that um, walked me through. He was like my, I forgot what they call him, but he's the first person I was introduced to on the ship, and he was showing me around, making sure I didn't do anything stupid. We're like this now. Anything this guy needs, I got his back, and vice versa. He's still in. Um, and it was just like that camaraderie, just being at sea with people that I like, and that there are times you'll have people that irritate you, but the people that you just like, this is my tribe.
Yeah.
So that was my favorite part about serving was, as people, whoever is listening to this podcast, they'll probably think this guy is crazy, but yes, it was my favorite part, even though it was very short.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. You brought that up. Because usually we hear, when you're out to see like the cool places you've been, oh, I got to go to this really cool spot, or I really loved it here. But rarely do you hear people say what you said. And sometimes it can just really suck being at sea. But there is kind of
Yeah.
the other side of the coin too, right? Where you're with like your tribe. And I think that's a really cool way to express it. Because there is kind of that feeling, I think, for all of us when we're in, depending on, where you're stationed, what you're doing, but that is your tribe, right? Like you spend hours
Yeah.
upon hours with them all the time. And, you kind of become one in a sense, right? A unit.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
it's like five of us, and we're still like very close. I'm the oldest of all of us, but because I joined when I was really late, but we're still like very tight. Anything any one of those four guys need, I have their back.
that's awesome. Well, what was your favorite place you got to go to?
I didn't go to much places. Say probably it sounds stupid. Hawaii.
Nothing wrong with that. Um, Hawaii's beautiful, man. So how long were you in the Navy for?
4 years.
4 years. And so after Balboa, did you decide like it was time for you to move on? Or how did the transition work from you being in the military to transitioning to the civilian world?
So that was a very long story. So, well, not long, but it's just a very complicated story of how I ended up finishing. So, long story short, when you get injured as an engineman or anybody, if you're in an engineering rate, you kind of get blacklisted. If you get any form of injury, you get blacklisted, and they're just kind of like, hey, regardless of what the instruction says, we're gonna try and kick you out. And I fought nail and tooth I said, I just want to finish my contract. Let me just finish my contract. But when I transitioned to Balboa, I was doing so much for the Navy on a higher level, that they kind of forgot that they were trying to put me out. It was kind of, on one hand, the EN community was kind of like, hey, you got to go, you can't be deployed. But then Big Navy was like, this guy is he's working on a lot of our cybersecurity stuff. He's redoing a lot of our software, a lot of our processes. I was doing a lot for the medical field for BUMED at the time. And so there were a lot of people trying to keep me in based on my skill set and my past experience as a software engineer. Um, I think around 2017, I was considered I was a E5, just made E5, and they were considering me. I started the paperwork to become a warrant officer.
Awesome.
They were like, hey, we want you to be a cybersecurity warrant officer because they're still like really hunting down the cybersecurity folks to bring them in and recruit them into the warrant officer. And at the time, it's I forgot the name of that officer community, but it's all cybersecurity related. And my chief was just kind of like, no, I've been in for 22 years, and for you to be in not even 4, and I'm about to salute you, no way. Rip that shit up, threw it out. And
Wow.
so I missed that one opportunity. Then I got invited to become an officer in this new cybersecurity community, writing code. And because I had 2 TBIs, PTSD, and all these ailments, they were just kind of like, hey, you wouldn't make it through ODS, so we're not going to clear you medically. So, like I said earlier, I was really battling with the Navy to stay in, and suddenly I get orders to cross rate to it was one of those high security rates. They work in cybersecurity, but they're enlisted.
Uh-huh.
And I said, no way, because at the time I just started my doctoral degree. I said, no way. I'm about to be a doctor and you want to make me an enlisted doctor? No, sorry. So it was like about 7-8 months coming up on my EAOS, and I said, I will just do my. I had like a gajillion days in leave. I said I will take 60 days of leave, and I will just peace out. And that was how I transitioned. And it was just where I work now. It was kind of like it's just a huge coincidence / blessing because, excuse me, working in the in software engineering in IT, I was out of the game for 4 years, 3 years and change,
Yeah.
and that because the field is continuously evolving, and so I was kind of like reduced to the level of a fresh college kid, or probably not even that, somebody who's just out of college, but probably not even that. So it was a big challenge getting a job, not being in the field actively for almost 4 years.
Yeah.
And so I was just clicking through Indeed, just clicking. Ended up getting a phone interview with my boss. I didn't even know who. I was just like, yeah, I answered a couple questions, and he's like, come in for an in-person interview. And he opened up the doors to like, once that I got approved for, once had that interview, so many other interviews started popping up because I'm also at the time I was also and still am one of the vice presidents for I'm a vice president of IT for another nonprofit called Armed Forces Communication Electronic Association.
Okay.
And so for the San Diego chapter, so like they were like, oh, you're transitioning. Oh, my company wants you. My company wants you. My company wants you.
Ah.
So it was just kind of like once that interview happened with my current boss, so many people started reaching out to me because they're like, oh, you're about to get out.
Yeah. No, it's crazy how that network just unfolded for you right there, right?
Yeah, and I was really stressed out about it.
I'm sure. Yeah. That can be super stressful. So, it's interesting topic, cybersecurity. My videographer Paco, he's working on that at a postgraduate level and wants to get into that. And we see so much more of it. I'm sure I'd love your perspective on it, but we see, a lot of this or hear a lot of it about it in the media, different companies being attacked. And now, the Ukraine Russia thing and, Ukraine's, government systems being attacked and things of that nature. It's really a very real threat, you know. And I think for those of us who are not IT savvy, especially to the degree that you are, it sounds a little bit kind of, you know, Star Wars or Star Trek-ish, that, you know, cyber attacks and things like that. But it's a real thing, right?
Yeah, it is a real threat. You know, there are times I'll be working, I left work to come here, my office, you know, so to come back home for this interview. So like I even when I'm working on any project, and it could be writing code, it could be just looking through logs. Like I have this, I forgot the name of the movie, but it's like a movie theme going through my head, you know, I'm doing something cool, you know, about to mess some people up, you know, and it's like exciting, you know, and people think I'm crazy, you know, but it's like I get like a rush of adrenaline. It's almost the same rush that you get when I don't know if you had it, but I always felt good putting my uniform on when I was in. I always had that rush and that pride, and yeah, I'm a
Totally.
U.S. Navy sailor, and it's the same thing with cybersecurity. Oh yeah, about to fix some people's stuff. I'm gonna make sure that they're doing well, you know, and all of that. So it's a very real threat, and it's something that a couple of years ago we used to just go, oh, you know, I just log on to this one app. I won't care who knows my password. People share password. Log on to this network, that network, and you're like, oh, how did I lose $100? You call the bank, hey, you took $100. Oh, no, I didn't. You know, you gave your information out when you logged on to that one Starbucks Wi-Fi that's unsecured, or the hotel Wi-Fi. You know, so it's a very real threat. And even myself as a professional, like, I mean, I'm not on top of everything, but I try to get as much alerts as possible on everywhere that I'm logged into, you know. So I
Right.
get a ping, oh hey, this one site got breached, you might want to change your password. And I'm like, oh crap, it's probably like 2 in the morning. I'll roll out of bed, I gotta change my password right now, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So when we hear stuff, you know, in the media of a cyber attack, you know, to another country or a big organization, what is actually happening? Like, what's going on in the computers? Like, what makes it an attack? Like, what is the person or the entity being attacked? What are they experiencing?
It depends on the level, the type of attack. So the one that Russia is doing is a distributed denial of service attack. Don't let the name fool you. It's simply they're programming a bunch of computers to just kind of like block certain ports. And by that, it's kind of like just sending a bunch of requests to one area, and it's just kind of locking them out so they can't, you know, perform daily actions like as simple as just putting a website up, because there's so many requests hitting that one website or that one server that the server just kind of just blows. Because and so with that, your services, just anything that's associated with that server just kind of topples, because it's getting a workload that it's not used to getting,
Just
because
totally
they're,
overloaded, right?
yeah, they're recruiting a bunch of, we call them, for lack of a better term, bots. And so that's why it's distributed denial of service, you know. So you're getting, the distributed part comes from the recruiting all these bots to do the work. And then it just kind of just hits it, hit it until there's no more service. So it becomes a denial of service.
Oh, okay. I heard an analogy, and tell me if this is appropriate, but I heard something on the news today. They were trying to make an analogy of this to make it easier to understand. And they're saying, you know, they were referencing a particular music festival, but picture any music festival that's super popular and, you know, tickets go
Mm-hmm.
on sale right now. And everybody jumps on that website to go buy tickets. And, you know, it's one of those ones that sells out in like, you know, 30 seconds or some crazy number, right? So
Yeah,
that's what they
yeah,
kind of gave me the analogous of, is like, it's kind of like that. Like, it gets so much traffic that it can't work.
yeah. It just kind of just freeze or it just shuts down.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, that's really interesting. So, um, in in this whole like cyberspace, you found some time, obviously, to give back, right? So you're participating in couple different things, right? Obviously, the organization that you told us you're the vice president of, and then doing some other stuff to give back from a nonprofit standpoint. Tell us a little bit about that.
So to preface why I even, I was a Rotarian. I was out in Rotary. I was an odd fellow before the Navy. I quit all of that when I joined because I was just like, I want to put all my attention in serving. And so when I joined, there was not much happening serving. When you're there, it's kind of like collateral duty. You're on a committee and you hang out, you talk. Oh, hey, we're in diversity committee. Let's do something fancy for the Hispanics this year. Let's do something fancy for the color folks this year, and so on and so forth. And it's just kind of like, there wasn't that I'm doing this because I want to give back. And so my last 2 years in the Navy, like I said, I was at Balboa. And the reason I was at Balboa was partially treatment and, of course, doing government work,
Right.
being a Navy sailor. And while I was there, I went through a number of treatments. Some of the treatments I went through strength training. I had to like relearn how to walk correctly and all these things. Strength training, music therapy. I had surfing, swimming, and dancing, salsa and bachata. And so it started out with swimming and strength training and music therapy, and I was just killing it because I was just from Jamaica, and the way my parents raised me, we don't stay down. We're a very aggressive nation. We're just driven, like
Yeah.
we're will driven. And so I was just very good at everything that I do. That one of the ladies, she's still at Balboa, Betty, she introduced me to surfing. Before the Navy, I was, coming from an island, I was an okay swimmer. Joining the Navy, I tried to do the whole Navy, tried to be an EOD technician. So I had to go through that whole swim thing, learn the way the military wants you to swim and all that. So I'd never done much of that for about 2 years while I was on the ship, because you're on the ship,
Yeah.
So Betty introduced, through surfing, I got introduced to a number of organizations, surfing and salsa and bachata. While I was introduced to Soldiers Who Salsa, which is now it's no longer existing. The founder, there was just a lot happening, and they had to dissolve the organization. So that was the group that got me dancing, and now I teach at some nightclubs. I am slowly getting into competing or performing. It's not really my thing, but because you teach, it kind of goes hand in hand.
Sure.
And then I got introduced to Torrey Pine Surf Ministry, which is down in La Jolla. From there, I got introduced to One More Wave, which that is my tribe. Those guys, that's my, as much as I love dancing, that is my now tribe. One More Wave. So when I was I got introduced to Armed Forces Communication Electronics Association, AFCEA, through a retired, I think he was an admiral or a captain, but he was in the Navy. He was a big shot, still around. He was like, hey, you have this degree and all this experience, and you're doing all this work for Balboa, and you're just, at the time I was just an E4, and I was just like, yeah. And he's like, I want you to come be the VP for IT. And I'm like, I think the Navy brainwashed me, and I was just like, I'm just an E4. He's like, no, like, take the fact that you're an E4 out of the picture. You are Robert Morgan, and you have a bachelor's degree and like 8 years of software engineering, web development, and all this experience. And I'm like, and he's like, just do it. So that was where I got my feet wet, was AFCEA. They got me wet, my feet wet. And from there, Soldiers of Salsa, I did some stuff with them until they got dissolved. So I was very big in AFCEA and Torrey Pine Surf Ministry. So I surfed so much for like 2 years. Like I was just on it. I was competing, I was in it, on it. And with in Torrey Pine Surf Ministry, if you do it for so long, they ask you to teach. So I was so committed to showing up every single Saturday, which they're there every Saturday, free boards, free suits. And I would like, oh, you want to learn to surf? Come on a Saturday. And I would teach all my friends how to surf. I was in I was a part of a church, and there were a lot of people in the life group I was in that they were just like, I've always wanted to surf, but up, I got you. Let's go. So they
That's
weren't
awesome.
even veterans or active duty, and I would just invite them down on a Saturday morning, get the surfing in. And a lot of them, they're still surfing. So I transitioned out. Transitioning was tough. And, with transitioning, I just made sure I maintained the schedules. I made sure I stayed busy. So I didn't have much downtime. Because the moment you have downtime is the moment your mind just starts going in 10 different places. You start getting depressed, anxious. I had a job, don't get me wrong, but I missed what I did
Yeah.
in the Navy. So that kind of just slowly grew into I was really big in the Torrey Pine Surf Ministry, very big. And at the end of 2019, with the mid 2019, I started being a promoter for salsa and bachata in San Diego. So I run a page where I promote everything across San Diego, LA, TJ, wherever. If they reach out to me, I promote it. And it's like a really big page now. I'm like one of the biggest promoters in Southern California as a side job. And so the girl that started that organization, that thing with me, that entity with me,
Yeah.
she's big in the whole immigrant advocacy and all this stuff. And she's just like, how do you feel about all this homeless bit? So this was like the end of 2019. And I was like, it sucks. I was very fortunate that when I transitioned out, it was a very smooth transition.
Yeah.
I had a job during terminal. I was still being paid active duty. I was basically being paid double.
Right.
And it was, and then I just flowed. The VA stuff kind of just flowed. And but there's so many people that when they're transitioning, they're just kind of like, oh, it will figure itself out or whatever, but they fall through the cracks. And we were just having this long discussion, and it just kind of just broke me. I was just like, oh my gosh, a veteran, Vietnam, Gulf War, Desert Storm, whatever, they're on the streets. And so my first go at something outside of AFCIA and Soldiers with Salsa was a random charity event at the end of 2019, which we raised like maybe like $1,000, and we gave it to VVSD, Veterans Village.
Oh, Veterans Village. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Familiar with those guys.
So
Yeah.
we donated to them, and then COVID happened, and a lot throughout COVID, we were still dancing. We're just like, we're dancers. If we get sick, oh well, we share each other's germs anyway. So we kept dancing, and I kept one of my other friends, John Sue, he kept me in surf, he kept me in check. Rob Garnett with the same, with One More Wave, they all kept me in check with my surfing. And on dancing, of course, I was always on deck. And so with that, a lot of veterans were just this. I started posting videos on my personal page, and a lot of vets were like, man, you're really good. You should teach me. And so, I teach one off, and it was just getting overwhelming. And I was just like, I don't have the time to be teaching 10 million people.
Right.
So how about I just start I was just randomly like, how about I just start a nonprofit as a spin-off of the charity event I had about 2 or 3 years ago. And I talked to a bunch of the guy who taught me salsa. I talked to him. So he's the main teacher in my organization now,
Okay.
which is Dancing Veterans San Diego. Talked to him. He was like, yeah, I'm down to teach. So it was a bunch of us, and we just keep posting. If people come, they come. We don't get offended if you don't come, but everybody who used to ask me to dance, they come to this as much as they can because it's free. It's free for the most part. You're basically paying for just using the studio. Your body being in that studio. That's all you're paying for.
Gotcha.
You're not paying us. Nothing comes back to us. It goes back to the studio. Um, and then on top of that, I started going to another networking event, Buddy Check and Biz, and I ran into this lady, Charlene Autolino, and she is the president of San Diego San Diego Veteran Employment Committee, and so I also am with them, and so we help vets who, you're transitioning or you're active duty, transitioning vet, whichever, you're trying to find a job. We help you. So I a lot of people just keep pinging me to be a part of their organization because I build websites also. So
Yeah.
I'm like their webmaster. I build their websites. I do all this stuff for free because I'm like, you're a nonprofit, you need it. I'll build it. I'll maintain your stuff. So, and I haven't built one for my own organization yet because I want to make sure when I put it out there, the information is clear, concise. And if you have questions, the only questions you should be asking me is, hey, how can I help? I don't want, hey, this is not clear. So that's why I haven't created a website for dancing veterans San Diego's yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's kind of like the contractor whose house isn't remodeled, right? It's
exactly. I'm busy helping everyone else, and my house isn't even fixed.
Right. Yeah. No, that's really cool. So, I can imagine, the dancing for veterans is probably a good therapy, and you could probably attest this for like the PTSD type stuff, right?
Yep.
In that, and just hearing some of your experience with music and surfing and dancing, and how that helped you. Are you guys seeing a good positive impact on veterans in kind of that space with this program?
Yes. Yes. So for me, the reason the reason I decided to start it, right, was I was having a lot of body aches, standing too long hurts. But the moment I start moving, I'm no longer in pain. I don't need to be on any medications, as I don't need to be taking as much pain meds as I used to, where I was just like, I'm in pain, I'm just gonna sit down or lay down. And it's a lot of veterans that I can think of like maybe two people. I don't want to say their names because I don't have permission to say much.
Sure.
But they are in the same position as I am, and one of them, they were just like, when I was talking to them, and they were like, yeah, I'm going through this right now, da, 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 da. I said, just try dancing, dance as much as you can, and then sit. But don't make it a priority to be out there in the lesson or in the dance scene as much. Like, you go as you can. And she came to one, and she was just like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed. My anxiety is so much, I'm in control of my anxiety. I don't even remember that I'm depressed, and my pain, it's like, it's not as bad because I'm moving. And I'm like, I'm no doctor, but I'm just saying, this is what it did for me, and it's doing that for you. If you know somebody that it helps, tell them the same thing, and then tell them to come, you know. But it does help with that PTSD, depression, anxiety. I don't know the whole chemical thing behind that. I'm not that type of doctor, but I just know that for me, it helps. It's like a thunder blanket, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, on top of that, it's fun, right? To do all that stuff. But I know, that there's, and I don't know the science behind it either, but there's a lot to do with, being in motion as far as like physical pain, right? To help keep lactic acid moving, and all those types of things. Movement is good generally. That's why a lot of times they'll PTs will have you do like exercises in the pool, swimming and stuff. Like, it's not necessarily the resistance on a joint or tendon or a body part, but just the movement, right? So there's definitely some movement there, and music obviously has such a positive impact for people. But I think in combination of like when you're dancing and you're learning how to dance like that, there's a mental and a physical component, right? You have to be able to be, it's not like walking on a treadmill where you can just do that mindlessly, right? Like you have to think
Right.
while you're doing that dancing. And
Exactly.
and there's I think a lot that transacts in your mind when you're having to combine the physical and the mental in one, and really think about what you're doing. Because we can all go get on a treadmill and do that mindlessly, right? But you can't do that. And I had a personal trainer years ago who used to be a boxing coach, and he put me through a boxing workout, and boy, that was tough, because you have the physical, right? That's just tough on its own, but then you have to combine it with the mental aspect of the combinations and the right punch when he calls for it, and the hook and the uppercut and all these things, right? And it really kind of it alleviates everything else mentally and emotionally that's going on with you, because it takes all of your energy and focus there. It's really cool.
Yeah, I always get people. So even after you've been through it for a couple, you've been through a lesson and you're in the dancing, right? For me, like every time I dance, it's almost like I'm playing chess, because like you learn so many moves, and it's kind of like, what's the combo that I can do to make this girl look good? And so I'm thinking like, all right, I think she likes a right turn. She likes a cocoa, And so I'll do different things to just play with it. And, I'll hear people say, when I see you before, so sometimes you're standing there, you don't know if you're going to ask a girl to dance, or sometimes you don't know who's going to come ask you to dance.
Sure.
Some of them, they're like a little bit apprehensive, because I'm not always smiling, I just stand there and I'm just kind of, and then they'll dance with me and they're like, oh my God, like you're like a completely different person from the person I saw standing on the side to when you're dancing. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh, this would look good. This would look good. Okay, cool. Boom, 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 boom. I'm doing all these tricks. And so like, I'm known for that. People are always like, you're just so good at dancing. And so that's why my teacher, who's a Marine Corps veteran, he's always been encouraging me. Robert, keep dancing, keep dancing, keep dancing. You should teach. No. And then I cracked during the pandemic. I was like, all right, people keep asking me, so I'll give in.
Yeah. There was maybe a little divine intervention there. Well, that's really cool, Robert. Where can people connect with you, so they can, if they want to participate in the dancing, or see some of the other salsa stuff that you're helping to promote, if they're into that thing, where can they go to follow you or check you out so they can learn more?
So for the overall dance scene, look for on Instagram, SD Salsa Bachata. My personal Instagram is Robert Purpose, one word. So Robert and Purpose, smush it together, and then you'll see a bunch of dance videos of me. And then I gotta remind myself really quick of the Dancing Veterans one, because it's a little bit different. So the Dancing Veterans one on Instagram, it is We Are Dancing Vets, all one word.
Okay.
And then on Facebook for those two, look for San Diego salsa bachata scene, or Dancing Veterans San Diego. Those two are on Facebook. And so you could message me on either one of those platforms, and I'm very responsive. And if you want to, Facebook, Instagram, and if you're on LinkedIn, you can just look me up.
Yeah, well, I think it's a really cool thing that you're doing. How many guys really know how to dance? I mean, let's be real. Like, really know how to dance? Probably not a lot, right? So there's probably some intimidation factor there. But you know what? It's fun. And for those that are either just looking for something to do, or really do need to get over some anxiety or some PTSD or something like that, this is a good thing to try, right? Hey, you might,
right? Yes.
The worst thing that'll happen, you might have a little fun, and you might actually learn how to dance a little bit, right? I don't think either of those are bad.
Well, and the reason why it's so easy for me, I was a swing dancer when I came to America. My ex-wife, she was a rodeo girl. She taught me two-step. When I was in North Dakota, Indiana, I learned swing dancing. So I was a big Balboa dancer, Balboa, Lindy Hop. And then I had my accident. And because those dances it's a lot of this, I didn't really do much of that. And I was scared to go back to dancing. So like I was like your average Joe when I started. I was just like, nope. And it ended up being the doctor. Love this guy. I forgot his last name, but his first name is Jim. Retired Navy captain. He's a doctor. He was like, this is an order. You are going to dance. And I was like, oh man, you know. So he put it on my little prescription, and I stuck with it. And I there are times on Instagram I would post videos of myself back in 2016, 17 learning. And people are like, oh my God, that has to be a lie. That is somebody else. And I'm like, that was me. I was struggling with walking, you know, and I was struggling with like putting the steps there. My confidence was shot, you know, join the Navy, hoo-yah Navy, to, oh my gosh, my hips hurt, you know, my knees hurt. Or, you know, if I bend down too fast, I'll fall on my face because of my TBI. And to now I'm doing tricks and spinning chicks, doing all this stuff. And everybody, like, there's another Navy veteran. She's one of those that she's just like, thank you for posting those videos of yourself back when you were learning. Like it brings a lot of hope to me. And I'm like, that's why I posted. I want you guys to come out and dance. I didn't wake up dancing, you know, I was in a lot of pain, you know, still am in some ways, but it's not as extreme as back then.
That's great. That's really good. Well, Robert, I hope that a lot of people get to hear this today and connect with you. I love what you're doing to help our veteran community, and love where your heart's at. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today on our podcast. We really appreciate it. And we'll have links for everybody when we post up this episode so you can connect with Robert and see what he's up to. But Robert, thank you so much for your service, and thank you for what you're doing to continually serve our community.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you guys for having me. I truly appreciate it. I'm honored, and looking forward to hearing and spreading the joy of dancing and surfing.
Awesome. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, guys. All right. Take care.
Take care. Thanks so much for checking out this week's episode. Please subscribe, click the link below, share with your friends. And hey, if you know a military person or a veteran with a great story to share, we would love to highlight them on the podcast and get their story out to everybody. Thanks so much.